Hey everybody, welcome back to I Know a Guy. If you're new here, my name's Anthony. I'm a business profit advocate. On this show, we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals, and just people doing cool things. For example, today we're meeting with Sheryl Mays, a true expert in transforming customer experiences and communication. From her role as a CEO to her work as a best-selling author, international speaker, and podcast host, Sheryl brings unmatched energy and insight into every conversation. How you doing today, Sheryl?
I am doing fabulous. How about yourself?
I can't complain. If I can kick this cold's butt, then I'll be perfect. But I'm about 95%. We'll just say that. So, where you calling? What was that? Sorry.
Oh no, I'm fine.
Yeah, where are you calling in from? Where are you located?
I am in Orlando, Florida, and same as you. The weather is beautiful, then it's 40, then it's 70, and so yeah, the cold factor is here.
Yeah, no, it's real bipolar at the moment. We get all the ups and downs. I'm in Iowa, so we get all four seasons, but we get them good and hard. So right now it's back and forth. It's giving me whiplash. So, what do you
Hmm.
recommend? What do you recommend people do if they're visiting your neck of the woods? What's fun?
Oh my gosh. Well, of course, I'm in the town of Mickey Mouse. so so Disney is always huge. But you know what? I'm a beach person. I like beach. I like laying on the beach, just kind of soaking in the sun and just going into the water. So any kind of water activity, I love. I'm a scuba diver, so I enjoy water sports. Any outside activity, you can do it here as long as you pick the right time of the day.
Okay, that's interesting. Haven't had anybody say that they're scuba diver on here yet. What do you scuba? Do you go to like those offshore wrecks or is it just kind of just around?
I have done both. So here it's about 5 or 6 hours from Key West and West Palm, and you can jump on a plane and get to Bimini. So there are a multiple spots that you can actually go to. I am one of those divers that like to take pictures. So I'm the one underwater that's stopping and staring at the reefs and the fish and the sea turtles, and I'm taking pictures.
That sounds fun. I've always wanted to scuba dive, but I don't know. We'll see. I might never, or I might. We'll see. But awesome. So what can you tell us about what you're doing?
My goodness, I am doing, it's interesting. I say that this is my opportunity of being able to spread kindness throughout the world. And I look at it from a business aspect. And because kindness is not just being nice, but it's also profitable. So that's where the customer service and customer experiences come in. So my opportunity of being able to work with organizations, their leaders, their employees on creating experiences that have lasting impressions that drive behavior.
Okay, I got you. How long have you been doing it? What got you started?
My gosh, I have been doing this. Customer service is one of those areas where whatever job you have ever had in life, right, there's always an element of customer service. Where the key point is there's typically no customer service trainings. And so we just assume people know how to be kind and nice and patient until they're not. And then that's a problem. So, I like to tackle it before it becomes a problem and really look at, what is your customer satisfaction scores? What's the feedback? What are some of the issues that you're having and this level of frequency? So that every interaction that we have with our existing customers, it's so that the future customers have a much better experience.
Okay, I like that. So in your work with Rising Shine Consulting, what are some of the most common challenges businesses face when trying to elevate their customer service, and how do you help them overcome those hurdles?
A lot of it is getting the people that are responsible for communicating with customers. And that can be the service department, it can be a manager, it can be internal customers. Right? Sometimes we forget about our internal customers, which are our colleagues. There are, other folks that are within the business culture that we also need to get along with. And so everybody has those needs and wants. And it's really being able to, take some time to identify what are the needs and wants, what are individuals' expectations. Because here are some of the challenges, right? As customers, we have high expectations because we're spending money. But because we're not accustomed to having our expectations met, we have what I call low acceptance. In other words, we receive customer service that is beneath what we would expect, and we're okay with it because we're not accustomed to having the niceties from waitresses and servers, or, we're not used to getting the call back when someone says, I'll call you back by the end of the day. Or we're not used to, or we're used to being on the phone, and you get this automated that you can't hit zero to get to a person, and you can't find the prompt that suits your need. And now you need to speak to a representative, but first you got to go through a chat bot. And so, you're adding levels of frustration. And so, how I work with organizations is, how do we eliminate anything that's creating friction? Because if it's friction and frustration, the behavior that you're going to drive is, I want to go somewhere else. Now you've just sent a customer to your competitor.
Yep. No, yep, you're you're right. Um, so you've authored 6 books and
Mm-hmm.
launched the Master to Sale Academy. Can you share kind
Mm-hmm.
of what motivated you to create that academy and how it's impacting folks?
Absolutely. Well, we can go back to the book. The very first book that I wrote was for entrepreneurs, and it is called Silencing the Chatter Monsters, and how to move beyond your fear. When I think about it, and I also mentor entrepreneurs in a nonprofit organization that I work with. And so when you think about an entrepreneur actually making the decision, right, of, I'm going to take this leap of faith, I'm going to go for this thing because this is my legacy, this is, the gift that I want to leave on the world or my family. There's some mental things that have to take place. There's some mindset shifting that needs to take place. There's some ideals about what is it that I really want my service to be, because we can always talk about the highest levels of these standardized services, but what does that really mean? And so the book actually shares the story of 7 very successful engineers. And those of you that are in the audience, I'm going to age myself here. If you've ever seen The Twilight Zone, and for some reason there's this mysterious gathering or someone mysteriously appears, but they're meant to be there for that person at a particular time in their life. That's how the book is. These 7 individuals come into this traveler's time when they needed to really understand, what are some of the things I can do to silence the chatter so that I can focus on moving forward and focus on looking at the positives that can come out of it, and the fact that I have the capabilities of being able to make this thing happen. And so that was the first book. From there, I have 2 compilation books that are about leadership, because every organization has to have, exceptional leadership in order to have an exceptional culture. And then I'm also a power of positivity master. I believe in the power of positivity. There's this saying that says, if we think it to be so, we feel it in our hearts, we commit to it, then it's going to happen. But all 3 of those things have to be in sync. You can't do one and not have the other. And so I believe in the power of words. And so I have 3 journals that are affirmational journals. And believe it or not, one is geared towards entrepreneurs, because even within our business, we need to speak positivity so that we continue to move forward, because there's going to be a contract that doesn't come through. There's going to be a client that didn't return your call, and you're going to be banking on this. And when it doesn't happen, what do? You got to still move forward. So, that's the journey of the books. The academy that you mentioned was because oftentimes I deal with companies that are not in state. And so one of the things that I do believe is that when we have an opportunity of learning and we take courses, when they're pre-recorded, chances are people don't finish them, right? When it's great intentions, but people don't finish them. And so before I started the academy, I went out and I took some surveys. I wanted to gather data, like, how many courses have you registered for and you didn't finish? And the numbers were, crazy. It's like, yeah, I sign up for these programs and they say, it's easy to complete and you can do it at your own pace. But then another program comes up and they start that, and then they start that. So I didn't want to do that. So the academy has live facilitation. So you're coming into the academy with a live instructor. right there. You can ask questions, and they can continue to update material that's relevant to today's work environment. And all of the courses are geared around customer service as your superpower. So how does customer service increase retention? How does customer service increase sales? How does customer service increase the customer's lifetime value? So these are all courses that revolve around customer service, but they have legs of their own. And so that's what the Academy does. One of the things that I realized is, and I've been in sales for years as a vice president of sales when I was in corporate. And one of the things that I know is that whenever you have had customer service training, it's probably been about 5 minutes. It's been a part of the sales funnels and the pipelines, and it's, oh, yes, and let's be nice to customers. Well, I've given it legs of its own because it warrants that, because it does 5 things. When you have these exceptional experiences, these memorable, impressionable experiences, it allows customers to come back. It increases their frequency of spending. It allows them to extend their services. They now have something to tell their friends, their families, and their colleagues. And lastly, they're out as brand ambassadors. So they're out in the community talking about the business. So when I say kindness is profitable, that's the reciprocity of it.
I really like that. It takes it from that's the place I went to the place I go kind of mentality, where they really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy their experience and they're going to come back. And like you said, brand ambassadors, they're gonna talk about it and it's going to help you in the long run. And you're not wrong. Customer service is so overlooked, but it's one of those things that if you don't get it, you notice it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I like that. And then all the way back to your first book, I really like that as well, helping people that want to become entrepreneurs because it is scary. And you're gonna have
Mm-hmm.
naysayers. You're gonna have people that are saying, "Yeah, don't." You're gonna leave your good job, your benefits, your pay to do something that might not work. Every single entrepreneur out there, at least the majority, have dealt with that. So it's good to reaffirm that it's okay to take that risk, take that jump. If you don't have the perfect job that you want, go make it. So I like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so your podcast, The Customer's Tea, highlights the important conversations around excellence. And one thing that I've noticed hosting a show is you have a lot of connecting, through lines between episodes where I might be talking to one person about something, talking to somebody else about something, and they kind of synergize and it starts to ring true across, a broader area. So what are what's like one key takeaway that maybe that's happened where a lot of people are seeing the same thing and it might be universal law or just might be something that's, kind of new. What do you see there?
I see a couple of things. So in my podcast, I talk to customers because for me, they are the experts. And so the customers come on and they share their experience and then they provide a solution. So what would you have liked to have seen happen that would have made you feel better? And a lot of times it's something as simple as, Sheryl, you know what? They never even apologized. They never even said, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. They acted like nothing happened or like it was my fault, the customer, for not receiving what I was told that I was going to receive. And it's one of those things, when you help people feel valued and important, right? There's again a reciprocity that comes from that. Now, when you help people feel unvalued and unimportant, there is still a reciprocity that comes from that. And so a lot of times I get the three common, areas or three common focuses: the inability to apologize. The other one is that the inability of being able to resolve issues within the first contact. And so think about it. If you've got an issue and you've got to send this series of emails back and forth and you're waiting on a phone call and then the call doesn't come through, and all of these things add to the levels of frustration that one has. Now I get Anthony on the phone. I am not only frustrated, I am outraged. And so, and so it's at that point when the employee is like, oh, they're so mean and crude. And I'm like, nobody wakes up that way. Right? Nobody wakes up and go, whose day can I ruin? That's not what they want. Right? They want resolution. And so the ability to empower individuals to be able to make on the spot decisions allows them to use their own judgment. And how do they use their own judgment? Well, it goes back to company core values. Hey, what are your company core values? So I tie all of that into customer service because when you think about it, majority of the core values are accountability, integrity, customer responsiveness. Well, if you're not returning phone calls, you're not being accountable. If you're giving mixed messages, then where's the lack of integrity? So it all comes back to helping employees realize you can be empowered when you utilize our core values as the method in which you make decisions.
Okay. I like that. What's your favorite thing about what you're doing? You've been doing a lot. You have different, your hands here. You've written books. You have the academy. You host a podcast. What's your favorite thing that you're doing?
Speaking on stages when I'm actually in front of people and I can see their faces and I get the opportunity of being able to see people that have thought about customer service for eons, right? Just as this thing of everybody understands customer service. Well, we all understand that it has to happen, but we're not understanding the impact that it has on the bottom line. And it's not just about churning customers and saying, well, I'll just get new customers. That's not what it's about. It's about longevity. I work with businesses, then their whole point is for sustainability. How do we stay in business? Well, if you have no customers, then there is no need for your product or your service. So the best thing for you to do is to create a journey that maps out what is our customers' experience that we would like for them to have. And literally map it out. What is it that you want them to experience? What are the emotions that you would like for them to feel? So that way, as you're looking at it, you can see what are some areas that could be frustrating. What are some areas that can cause bottlenecks or constraints? Because all of those things are going to lead to a negative impression. And we know negative impressions create negative behavior.
That's great advice in more than just one way, actually, because it's kind of crazy how much can be solved just by taking the time to, like you said, map it out. Whether it's defining what success means to you. So if you're starting your business, knowing if I get to this point, I consider myself successful. I'm not a billionaire, but I'm happy.
Mhm.
Versus, I have this problem in my business. What does that map look like? So, I mean, and I like the word map for it too, because if somebody asks you directions, how do I get somewhere? You got to know where they're at, right? If they're if
Yeah.
they're if they're in Iowa and they want to go visit you, it helps to know they're in Iowa because you're going to give different directions for somebody in New York. So
Mhm.
having that mapped out and being able to kind of see it and take action, that's important. I like that. I like that a lot. Um, what are like your avatar, your average client, somebody that if they're dealing with certain issues that for a fact you're the person that should be able to help them?
If they have employees that are struggling on dealing with customers when they have a difficult situation, a lot of times when folks are dealing with people that are angry or they're confused or they're overwhelmed, if you don't know how to communicate with that individual, then it can be frustrating to the employee. And so now, in their frustration, what happens is, and this goes into a mental state, is if I'm frustrated and I don't feel as though I have the right answers, I don't have clarity. And when I don't have clarity, I'm not a great problem solver because I'm not using my resources. So, when you're at that point of not being able to communicate, that's where I get a lot of calls. Help my folks to be able to turn negative situations around to positive situations. How do they not get burned out? You're taking these calls, 8 hours through the course of a day. You have a tendency of leaving and going, oh my gosh, do I want to go back there tomorrow? So, how do you help people through that? Because there's a way of being able to do that. And it starts with understanding how I can communicate with a person that is in an emotional state. Because when you think about it, customer service, it's all about emotions and human behavior.
Yeah, awesome. That's good to know. So what about power partners? Who do you synergize well with? Other industries or other professions that you might be helping the same kind of clients just in different ways?
So for me, it's interesting because people always say, well, what's your niche? Right. And for customer service, it's such a universal entity that my niche is horizontal. So I work with HVAC. I've trained at the FDIC. I've trained at the Social Security Administration. I've trained at hospitals. I've trained at colleges. So, there's this wide range of opportunity because every level in an organization is going to have some sort of service understanding as to what their role does and how what they do with customers benefits not only the company but the other folks in other departments. So it's interesting to say that who do I work with the most? I work with a plethora of organizations, from governmental agencies again to educational agencies to hospitals to schools. There's that full gamut of how does customer service impact that particular industry or that particular role. A lot of times I can get, for example, it would be front desk, receptionists, those what I like to call directors of first impressions, right? The people that you're going to talk to on the phone first, or the person that you're going to see first when you walk in. They have a huge role because they are the first leg of the experience. I've even worked with valet services, and they're like, well, we just park cars. I'm like, no, you don't. You are the first person that a customer will interject with will be, how nice was the valet person? Because that's going to tell them what they can expect inside.
That's interesting. Because that's not something that I'd ever really considered before. But yeah, it's a trope that, you only get one shot at a first impression, and then we'll overlook the first impression by, your person at the front desk or your valet. So that's really interesting. That's I don't know why, but it seems so simple now that you kind of put it that way. I like that.
Right? Isn't it simple?
Yeah, I like that. What's the number one mistake businesses make with customer service?
When they believe that it's not as important as the bottom line. So you can either be cost driven or you can be customer driven. If you're cost driven, then you're looking at how can we be more efficient without being more effective? In other words, we hear the story all the time of we're short on staff, right? That's like huge. We're short on staff. Well, if you're short on staff, then that staff has to be trained in customer service because the customers aren't going to be any less. Right? You're going to have the same amount of customers, but a shorter amount of people to interact with those customers. So it's really vital that that's not the reasoning behind poor customer service. The second thing, I'll say is listening to the customer, listening to their feedback. How many times have you filled out a survey and you see this ticker going down? And you're like, oh my gosh, how many more questions do I have to answer? And then nothing changes. And you're like, I keep fulfilling these surveys, but nothing's changing, which means you don't care. There's a statistic, and I want to get it right. I think it was by Bain and Company, and they say 80% of CEOs believe they are doing an amazing job in customer service. 8% of customers believe they are doing an amazing job in customer service. So there's that huge disparity in, okay, 80% believe yes and 8% believe yes.
Big disconnect there, right?
Right?
It's 10 times. So, okay. What's one communication skill that instantly improves customer satisfaction?
The ability of being patient, asking questions. Sometimes when you hear a similar scenario, you automatically interject and you go, oh, okay, I know where they're going. But you might have heard that 1,000 times. This is this customer's one time that they've shared this story. So it's important to them because they took the time to call in. So it means something to them. Or else they would have said, you know what, never mind, we'll just deal with it. So the ability to be patient so that you can listen and ask relevant questions, right? That allows you to get to the core of what the problem is a lot quicker, but also allows you to be able to establish a relationship. Because that's the whole point behind it, is if I establish a relationship, then when something goes wrong, because it's not if something goes wrong, it's when something goes wrong. And when something goes wrong, I'd rather they pick up the phone and allow us an opportunity to fix it before they make a decision. I've had customers that have said, you know what? I didn't complain or anything. I just didn't go back.
Yeah, and those are gone, right?
Hmm.
You don't know why. You don't even get the data point. They're just no longer there. So doesn't do you any good. So, is there anything that I missed that you wanted to add? Anything I failed to ask?
Yeah, it's one thing, and I say this all the time, is that when you think about customer service, it's not a campaign, right? It's not that once a year, let's bring everybody in and do this massive customer service training, and then it never gets talked about again. It's a way of life. It should be embedded into the culture. It should be talked about. It should be at every team meeting. There should be an element of customer service. Every conversation, there should be elements of how are we communicating with our customers? What are we hearing? There should be this constant chatter about customer service. That way, people see that it's on the top of mind. Because we know for a fact, right? When things get talked about every now and then, it's like it becomes the flavor of the month. It's like, don't worry about it. Next month, they'll be on to something else. But if it's a continuous conversation, then people really pay attention to it. And you hold people accountable to what I like to call customer service performance indicators. So now they're reviewed on it, their one on ones are on it, their development plans are a part of it. So it becomes a way of life for that organization.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of shocking how overlooked it is. Everybody's all focused about attracting new customers and bringing new customers in, but retaining and optimizing and being, efficient and serving the ones that you have is at least just as important, if not more. If you're trying to fill the bucket and there's a hole in it, you want to plug the hole. So, you
Yeah,
just don't shovel faster, right? Do both things. So,
exactly. And you think about the customer's lifetime value. Would you like to have a one-time transaction, or would you like to have that customer for 10 years?
yep, absolutely. So what's the best way that people can get a hold of you if they want to have conversations about maybe improving that or plugging that hole?
Two ways. One is LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to getting in touch with me. But I also run everything through my website. Again, I believe in friction free. So I don't do 85 landing pages, right? You go into my website and everything about me, my services, how you can connect with me is there.
Perfect. Yeah, easy is good. And I'm going to take all those and I'm going to put them right there in the description so people don't have to hunt for it because easy is good. But perfect. If anybody would like to get in touch with Sheryl, absolutely do it. Have a conversation. Your customer service is important. You know it is. It might have been overlooked, and I don't know. Again, I just can't get it through my head why it's so overlooked, but it is. And everybody knows when they come across somewhere that has good customer service, it stands out. People talk about it. Um,
Yeah.
People like to say, oh, they only focus on the negative, but if somebody has a really good customer service experience, they're talking about that a lot. So that's what you went out there. So you absolutely reach out to Sheryl, have that conversation. If you're a little bit more shy, feel free to ask me. I can happily make an introduction for you if you prefer a three-way introduction. If anybody out there would like to be interviewed, feel free to reach out to me as well. I'll have my link tree in the description where you can book a call with me. I'd love to have a conversation. But again, Sheryl, thank you so much for your time and coming in. And I'm gonna have to go back through this. I'm gonna take some notes because there's some stuff in here that I clearly missed. But there's a lot of knowledge in there. So I really appreciate you doing that and pouring into us. Let's all get out there, make our interactions better and more, long term and meet some more people, all right?
There you go. Remember, customer service is your superpower.